This weekend you might have been stuffing your face with chocolate and hot cross buns, but for many it is a deeply religious occasion, which I have to say personally, and I know you have a strong faith, Katie, I'm not religious, but funny enough, I was sort of doing the washing and stuff yesterday, and I was listening to the radio, and they did have an Easter-related sort of, wasn't a service on, but it was an interesting interview, and for the first time ever, something kind of clicked with me, and I was really interested to know what you particularly thought about it. In that, the woman who very much did have a Christian faith was saying that her relationship with God was special because it made her know that she was loved, from the get-go, that she was worthy, if you like. And it really made me think of all the conversations that we have, probably particularly about young women with low self-esteem, low self-worth, wondering what everyone else is thinking about them, judging themselves by other people. Whether or not having that knowledge that you are worthy and that you are worthy of love, albeit from a God, really does make a difference to the way that you kind of approach your life. And I always joke about having an epiphany, which is my silly way of saying epiphany. But I thought, God, I've had one on Easter Sunday. That is really wild. I mean, is that how it feels? Yeah,
well, you're enough in your Creator's eyes because they made you this way. And I think it doesn't just have to be Christianity. It's whatever you believe in, whatever religion. It's that sense that something's bigger than you. And I think that's important to a lot of people. I wasn't raised in a religious household or a Christian household, but it's something I found later on in life. And yeah, I definitely find it comforting. I find it reassuring, that sort of thing of being able to sort of surrender and let go because believing in God's plan rather than anything else.
So when you say later in life, when and why? Yeah,
I was in my 20s. I mean, I had sort of a typical RE, at school, but I was in my 20s when I found it, and it was after I was injured. One of the nurses was very, deeply religious, and she sort of prayed for me, she sung to me, and I think at the time I was quite lonely, and it was just a source of comfort in itself, that company. And then I explored it when I got discharged. I started going to a church, and I found a real community in that church who really helped me get my life back together, and it's just continued to be ever present in my life. I feel.
And you felt they wouldn't judge you?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. A good safety net for me when I first wanted to go back out into the world, a place free of judgment, and you're probably not going to find very many unkind people within that circle. But still now, I feel God working in my life now, and it's something I talk to my kids about.
So I'm going to ask you this, just because I know a lot of people watching will think this, or this is how they think, is how does God exist when terrible things happen to people? And, of course, you are one of those people.
Yeah, terrible things happen all the time, and some people will give the answer of man having free will, and some people will have beliefs that when people pass over, they go somewhere else, they're not meant for this life, they're saved from something else. But that can be really hurtful to hear for some people, and it's different and it's personal. I think for me, life is very much about mindset, and maybe more old-fashioned Christians would say, well, that's not a Christian belief. But I really believe in life being however you look at it, your mindset. So what happened to me was awful, but it was a small moment in my life, because the big moment is what I did with it after is what truly counts. And that was my mindset of how I see my life. I see myself as very blessed and very fortunate, but some people might disagree.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, it's how you feel that's important, isn't it? Not really what anyone else thinks from looking outside. I mean, do you have a faith?
No, I went to what you would call a C of E school. So we had, morning assemblies, and we definitely did the Lord's Prayer, and, we learned RE, or I think it might even be called RS, whatever. But so we learned all about the Bible, blah, blah, blah. But my house, my mum wasn't particularly religious. For me, I have no issue with any of it. For me, I think it does give you a really good moral compass.
Yeah.
Whatever you choose to do with it in later life. You learn about right and wrong and all of that. And sometimes that can be missing in other parts of education if you don't do religious studies at school.
Yeah, I suppose, I would hope that I behave in a quite moral way, which probably matches up with a lot of religions, I would hope. But it was that thing of being loved and made to feel worthy by an external body that really struck me. Because, I mean, we've spoken about it before in terms of self-esteem and self-worth, and a lot of young people are lacking that, aren't they?
Yeah, I do think it is. That's a nice thing. It's like you've almost always got backup. It's a sense of armour and a sense of safety. And I think I haven't been brought up to be religious, and I wasn't christened, so my parents kind of had this thing I could choose as I got older, which is something that I think, like, you got to choose, and I think that's a really nice thing, because it's a way that you're going to choose to live your life.
Yeah.
And I think for me, I'd love my kids to be able to choose whether they want a faith and whatever faith that is. And sometimes I do wish that I had one, because I think it would help with a lot of things. I have a lot of anxiety around what happens after life and this, that, the other, and I'd love to have a belief.
You might do one day.
Happens.
You might come to something one day. Something might happen to change the way you feel or challenge it. Yeah.
So I think it is. I think it's a lovely thing to have, but it's just not.
Yeah,
something
that used to
have.
scare me, actually. I used to do religious programmes, funnily enough, and you would meet people who had a strong faith, and sometimes you get in a conversation and they would speak to me about being saved, you know, and it terrified me because I'm a control freak, you know, and I really wasn't comfortable with this idea of, you know, some, you know, unknown being coming into my life. And so I suppose I would probably reject it. But maybe as you get older, you think, well, actually, I need a bit of help here. Maybe you can come in here and help me. And I suppose that's when you probably open up to it, don't
But
you?
I didn't think my kids knew any relation of Easter and any religious side of it, but actually I was quite surprised. They go to a Catholic school, actually, funnily enough, and they've learned all about it. So actually they ended up telling me about what it means, and, you know, pass the chocolate and the Easter. Don't get me wrong, they were the Easter egg hunt was very important to them. But at least they know where it's come from.
Yeah.